Thank you, Ken, for that beautiful, beautiful introduction. Ken Johnson is our musician this morning, and I'm Beth Allen. I'm platform assistant here at Unity Spiritual Center of Woodstock. And in honor of Fathers today, we have two congregant speakers who'll be talking later, giving us their reflections on Father's Day. We have Gil Whaples and Joe Jozwiak. So we look forward to those talks a little bit later. Let's start with an opening prayer. As I center myself into this presence of God, within and without me, I am so grateful for this day, grateful for the beauty of this time, of this season, grateful for those wonderful rains that we had last night, and the glorious sunshine this morning all reminds us of the cyclical nature of life and of God and of expression. And in honor of this day, I am grateful for the opportunity to reflect upon my father, fatherly figures, fathers everywhere, a time to honor them and to thank them for all that they did, whether it was difficult and challenging, and we had an opportunity to learn many lessons about loving and forgiving, or whether it was easy and supportive. In all ways, our fathers have given us great gifts, and we are so grateful. And so in the spirit of gratitude on this Father's Day, I say, thank you, God. Thank you, Spirit. And so it is. Amen. And now if you would join me in affirming the 5 unity principles. Together, please. There is only one presence and one power in the universe and in my life, God, the good omnipotence. The Christ Spirit lives within me. Thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. I experience God's presence and power through prayer and meditation. I put my faith into action by demonstration. And so in unity, we believe that we are walking a spiritual path, a path of awakening to our spiritual nature. And in this sense, we may be a little bit different from conventional religion, for we honor no dogma. We do not pray to a God outside of ourselves, but we recognize the God within. And so this is a growth. We come together here and support one another in our spiritual journeys, each being unique. We know that we are loved and supported in this congregation, in this teaching, and we are so grateful for this. And so if there is anything that resonates with you this morning, and you are moved to give, we would be most happy to receive a contribution. You may visit our website, unitywoodstock.org, to make it. We also encourage you to go to our website to check out our many classes and activities, which are now being held on Zoom, but which will resume in person, hopefully in the near future. And also, of course, continue to follow us on Facebook.
Without a microphone, I'm always lighthearted and easy. Not a care in the world have I, because I am loved by an Ollie, and I couldn't forget if I tried. She lives far away on the mountains, where the little birds sing on the trees, and the cabins are covered with ivy, and my Ollie is waiting for me. It's over the mountains, where the little birds sing on the trees, and the cabins are covered with ivy, and my Ollie is waiting for me. Yodelay, 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 yodelay. That day I bid goodbye to Ollie. That day I will never forget, for the tears bubbled up from their slumber. I fancy I see them yet. They look like pearls in the ocean as they wept their tale of love. And they said, my dear boy, don't forget me till we meet here again or above. It's over the mountain, where the little birds sing on the trees, and the cabins are covered with ivy, and my Ollie is waiting for me. Yodelay, yodelay, yodelay,
Good morning. I'm Gil Whaples, and I'm going to talk today, and my message is moments in spiritual harvesting. And being Father's Day, let me share a story about three boys about bragging about their father. The three boys were bragging in the schoolyard about their fathers. The first boy says, "My dad scribbles a few words on a piece of paper. Then he calls it a poem and they give him $50. The second boy says, "My dad scribbles a few words on a piece of paper. He calls it a song and they give him $100. The third boy says, "I got you both beat. My dad scribbles a few words on a piece of paper, calls it a sermon, and it takes 8 people to collect the money." It is said that the best messages are live, not preach. Sharing a message today on Father's Day, I'm going to share some living example I was part of, except one, and you'll be able to figure that out. As I share some of these dad, father, and grandfather moments, there may be sometimes you may connect with similar moments that seem like yesterday's. Celebrate these moments. In 1993, while participation in New Warrior Men Weekend, I was asked to write my mission statement for the direction of my life. I wrote 5, the one I will share as a father. I encourage my children and others to live in love, honesty, and integrity so they can find their self-worth in this world. They have and continue to do so. And my message is based on sometimes we will never know the value of a moment until it becomes a memory. And the second part of that, the memories don't leave once they make a home in your heart. Unity is a spiritual-based church. With that said, these dad, father, grandfather moments are for me spiritual moments in my life, possibly yours if you can relate. They connect me for a moment that does not require physical means to validate. The best gift a father can and receive is not material nature, but the moments that are etched into a dad's mind, those spiritual moments. My one and only job as a profession, I was a licensed union plumber, and 2 things that related to that. There are 5 generations. My wife's grandfather, her dad, myself, my son, and now his son. One of those things as a dad, when asked what I did for a living, I say a plumber, part of 5 generations of plumbers. Having a son and a grandson follow in my footsteps makes me a proud dad and grandpa. One of the memories that is etched into my mind that day is I retired for plumbing, and I wrote this reading relating to that day, describing my John Wayne son and myself. This is one of the moments that is now a memory, yet it pops up like those things on your phone that just, so I'm going to share this reading. 43 years all passed behind, all of them as a plumber, and then the time had come, the clock and the final day begun, and the final day was in store. No more on the job at 7 or quit at 3:30. The thoughts of reporting to duty on my mind were not for reporting to duty, were sounding good. No more fighting rain or snow on a very hot or cold days, and I thought of working less with my hands and more with my mind, doing these things that needed to be, have no time card to fill out. Yet to this day, my hands feel that loss, and as they become soft and smooth, and then that final day came, I had a plan. My son, a plumber, whom I asked to be with on that final day, his truck was my limousine, you see. A final coffee break and lunch were to be. Many thoughts that day were all part of my memories, yet to this day it is very clear as it was then. The moment I was to leave that truck and start my car and head home, my John Wayne son, type son, with his hand on my shoulder and tears in both our eyes. These words he spoke. It seemed you're going away forever, words etched in stone in my mind. And now for me, it's a start of a new journey down a new path. And my son lives next door. So, and the thing is, well, I'm not sure how old he is today, but he said, "Happy Father's Day, Daddy." And so, my own dad, who introduced me to God at an early age of around 6 years old, attending church Wednesday nights, Saturday mornings, and evening church. He played a fiddle and harmonicas, and he would play some old hymns. And I and my siblings sang along with him. So anytime today when old hymns are heard by me, memory goes back with time I spent at the church with him and the quality times. The moment now becomes a memory. My message on sometimes you will never forget the value of a moment till it becomes a memory. For me, this is a lesson learned because on the day my father was on his final journey home, I chose to work instead of being there like he was for me. I chose not to go to the hospital. A memory that I have shared with others in hopes that my message, never let money take the place, who was always there for you. I had an opportunity to be on the staff at Freedom Farm, an extended stay for relapse prevention from alcohol and drugs. One of my jobs was to be part of psychodrama. It's a form of psychotherapy which patients act out events from their past. A certain piece of work was a man who never received any love or recognition from his father other than from verbal abuse. I was then asked to play the part of his father, and he shared the things his dad never told him. So with that, we sat on the floor, me holding him as a dad and speaking as he hears the things he never heard from his dad. I can tell you that the tears from that man's eyes soaked my shirt, and as I sit here and tell you this story, I can feel those tears and the wetness right now. And one of the residents from the farm reminded me to share this, and then after that, we did a lift, and if you know what a lift is, we lifted him up above our heads and rocked him as more tears flowed. Well, as the disease, and then I played the disease as I recognized that this man was saying that his partner or his buddy always got him into trouble. So and as a disease, I realized that was not his problem because he had so much love for his daughter. And what happened is his friend borrowed his bike, his daughter's bike, then sold it. So we proceeded down that path, and as the disease, I grabbed the person that was playing his daughter and said, "Come on, I'll show you how you can be like Dad." And with that, he chased me out of the group room in response of taking care of his daughter. And then the piece that, again, love for his daughter, I grabbed the daughter again, the person playing his daughter, and took off, and he grabbed them back, the person back, and ran all the way up our lane, which is about 600 feet, just running. Those kind of memories just etch in about Dad's. And today, not all, but there are fathers from Freedom Farm who are clean and sober, those who will celebrate today, Father's Day, that at one time seemed not possible. And there are children, and their children will say on this day, "Dad, I love you. Happy Father's Day." But let me share this story. This is not one I was part of because I'm not that old. Mr. Leo Hirschfield, man in the 1800s, came to the United States, he brought with him a recipe for chocolate candy. He would make the candy at home, sit and cut it in small pieces, and then roll each piece in a paper wrapper for his daughter, and it took lots of time to do this. Why? Because he's loved his daughter, and she liked it that way. Now, Mr. Hirschfield really loved his daughter, and if he had a son, I'm sure he'd love them as much. He eventually made and sold his candy for a penny apiece. He named his candy after his daughter. Clara was her name, but her nickname was Tootsie. We will still eat Tootsie Rolls today. Next time we eat a Tootsie Roll, think about the dad's love for his daughter and the love for him. And the most important thing I think that a father can do for his children is love their mother. And I'll just get a set of scene as I close. Remember the big old houses with the big old front porches? Well, it takes place when I was a small child with my grandpa. And I wrote that in the form of a message. And it goes like this. He would pick me up and hold me in his arms and rock me on that big old front porch. Hold me in his arms. I remember that when on that old front porch, Grandpa sitting in his old rocking chair, I would jump up on his lap. He would rock oh so gently, holding me in his arms. Grandpa's gone to be with God. The rocker is empty now. But I can climb in that rocker today in the outstretched arms of God. All the troubles and the worries of the day are all forgotten as he rocks me gently, holding me in his arms. I cherish the moments with him and with Grandpa in the past. When the world starts spinning too fast, I jump in that rocker and God holds me in his arms, and I am at peace with God and me and those I love so much. Thank you.
Good morning. Happy Father's Day. You may recall our spiritual leader, Mary Patrice, talking about the Quest class going on now on Wednesday nights on Zoom here at Unity. It just so happens, as I was reading the material for this week, the writers talked about cause and effect. The book uses quotes like, "What goes around comes around," or "As you give it, you get." It mentions that scientists put it into more analytical terms. Every action causes an equal and opposite reaction. As we celebrate Father's Day today, I think about my father, how he raised me. I think about my son and how I raised him. I also think about my two stepkids, our relationships, and how they entered my life. Every action causes an equal and opposite reaction. The actions of our fathers shape who our sons and daughters will become. I got married to my first wife, Ellen, in 1987. At the time, Ellen had a daughter named Erin, who I immediately adopted, so I became not only a husband, but also a father for the first time. A year later, we welcomed our son Johnny into the world. The perfect family, one boy, one girl. Unfortunately, things were not so perfect between Ellen and myself, and our marriage ended only 2 years later. So began what many families face today, the sharing of custody, visitation, and children being raised in two different households. Being a dad who has visitation only on Wednesdays and every other weekend was hard at first, but things soon got into a rhythm, as does life in most families. I coached Johnny's Little League team, and Erin also became quite active in girls' Little League. We were involved in Indian guides and Indian princesses and really built some great memories together. These after-school activities allowed me to see the kids a lot more than I would have been able to if they had not gotten involved. As the years went by, Erin entered her teen years. Her visits to my house became less and less. I can't remember exactly when it happened, but at some point she decided that she no longer wanted to be a part of my life. We would talk and text occasionally, but soon even the text stopped being responded to. This was so difficult for me, and it still is something that I struggle with today. I'm not really sure how it happened. I can't tell you what made her decide not to want to be a part of my life. I still send her texts on special occasions, and Johnny keeps me up to date on her life. I hold out hope that one day her and I will be able to reconnect, and I'll once again be able to be part of her life. Johnny and I, on the other hand, were very close. In the early years, he would call me late at night when he couldn't sleep. We'd sit on the phone for long periods of time, talking about whatever was on his mind, and I would try to convince him to go back to sleep. I'll never forget those calls. Looking back, they were so special, and I really think we grew closer during those late night conversations. As Johnny moved through his teen years, we experienced the normal trials and tribulations parents experience raising teens these days, but Johnny and I remained close. The high school years flew by for Johnny, and soon it was time for him to go off to college. After spending 2 weeks at the University of Wisconsin in Milwaukee, he called telling me that it just wasn't working out. He came home, enrolled at Harper College for 2 years, and then finished his degree at Columbia College in Chicago. He did very well in school, majoring in sound editing. However, when it came to getting a job, most of the opportunities were on the West Coast. He really didn't want to leave the area, so he started working at a warehouse, similar to the job he had when he was in high school. He soon came to realize that this might not be the career path he envisioned, and as if maybe there was something available. He soon realized that this might not be the career path he envisioned, and he asked me if there was maybe something available for him at my company, Wintrust Mortgage. He applied for the intern program, and in a few months, he was accepted. He soon found the same passion for the mortgage business that I found as a young man, and I could not have been prouder. We now talk nearly every day about scenarios we come across, and we help each other put mortgages together for people. He truly loves the work as I do. I couldn't be a prouder father. I met my wife, Kim, while doing her mortgage back in 2005. We knew from the start that it was meant to be, but that's a topic for a whole nother story. We were married in 2007, and guess what? I was now the stepfather to 2 additional kids. Being a stepfather to 2 kids and having their father still in their lives was a totally different situation than when I adopted Erin. She had never known her father. Allie at the time was 10 and Marcus was 16. Who was I to be in their lives? How was I to act? What were the duties of a stepfather? I soon realized that it's all about learning from scratch. You're not really their dad. He is still very much in their lives. I learned that it was best to observe and just back up Kim in everything she did. As time passed, I would become more involved in the decisions that were made regarding the kids. I grew to be part of their lives. I knew my actions would somehow shape them, and I did the best I could to set a good example. It was frustrating at times trying to not be involved where I didn't belong, even though I wanted my opinion to be heard. I learned a lot, and I think the kids learned to respect me as a person and a stepfather. I watched them get through the rough parts, adjusting to living in 2 separate households. As time went on, we grew closer and closer. We grew to respect each other, and watching their growth has been such a joy for me. What a blessing for me to have them in my life. My parents were married in Chicago, and my mom gave birth to the first 4 of 6 kids here before my dad decided to take a job in Florida working for the space program. My younger sister and I were born there. Life was great in Florida, but my parents soon found that being separated from their families here in the Chicagoland area was just not cutting it. After moving to Columbus, Ohio, and Danville, Illinois, over a 4-year period, it was time to return to Chicago. We ended up in the south suburbs of Chicago, in a town called South Holland. I had a great life as a kid growing up. As a youngster, I'd ride my bike as much as I could. I loved exploring the neighborhoods with my friends. During the summer months, we would leave in the morning and not return until 5 o'clock, just in time for dinner. In those days, it wasn't uncommon for kids to be gone all day, and we didn't have cell phones, so there was no checking in. It was fine with my parents that I was gone all day, but I knew I'd better be home at 5 o'clock and not be late for dinner. Those were the rules, and we always followed them. Those were great times. As the years went by, those all-day bike rides I loved so much as a kid turned into driving around in my family's 1970 Chevy Caprice, hanging out with my friends in high school after working my job as a short-order cook. Things were different now at home since my father's health had failed after suffering 2 heart attacks before the age of 50. I remember coming home late after work, and he would be up in his lazy boy chair reading the paper or watching TV since he had a hard time sleeping. We'd catch up and talk about what I had been up to and how things were going. I always felt I had to tell him the truth about everything, so I was a pretty good kid throughout my teenage years. It was soon time for me to leave for college. I ended up going to Loyola University of Chicago. It was close enough to home so that I could sneak home occasionally and get my laundry done and have a great meal, but far enough away so that I didn't have to feel that I had to go home if there was a party or some fun event going on at the dorms on the weekends. When home for holidays, or on those occasional weekends when I would decide to head home, I remember having those late night talks again with Dad, just like in high school. During those later years, I could see how much pain he was in from the diabetes and his weakened heart. Those talks will always stay with me. It was in January of my sophomore year at Loyola that I got the call at school that my father had suffered a 3rd heart attack and that he had not survived this one. I'll never forget the feeling. It was devastating, but I truly believed that he had gone to a better place. He had been through so much in his life, and I knew that now his pain had ended. As you listen to my story of my life growing up and that of my kids, you see the different ways that we were raised. Although my dad didn't always say, "I love you," as my son and I do most every time we talk, I know that he did. Through our talks and in the way he always was there for me, he shaped who I became. I knew he had my best interest in mind in everything he said to me and taught me. He lived a life of service to his church and to his family. The actions of our fathers may not always be apparent, but they have an effect on us and who we become. As I look at who my children have become, I feel so proud that I was part of their lives growing up. I think about my dad and his actions and examples he set. He shaped who I became, and in effect, he shaped the lives of my kids, Johnny, Marcus, Alan, and Allie, and Aaron. Happy Father's Day.
Thank you to our speakers. That was wonderful. What would I do if I knew I could not fail? If I believed, would the wind always fill up my sail? How far could I go? What could I achieve? Trust in the hero in me. If I were brave, I'd walk the razor's edge, where true believers dare to tread, and I'll never lose faith, even when losing my way. What step would I take today if I were brave? What would I do today if I were brave? What would I do today if I were brave? What would I do today if I were brave? What if we're all meant to do what we secretly dream? What would you ask if you knew you could have anything? Like the mighty oak sleeps in the heart of a sea, are there miracles in you and me? If I were brave, I'd walk the razor's edge, where true believers dare to tread, and I never lose faith, even when I lose my way. What step would I take today if I were brave? If I refuse to listen to the voice of fear, would the voice of courage whisper in my ear? I am brave enough to move ahead, where true believers dare to tread, and I never lose faith, even when I lose my way. What step would I take today? I am brave. What would I do today? 'Cause I am brave. What will I do today? I am brave. What will I do today? I am brave. I am brave. Hey, 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 hey. Brave, brave, brave. Brave, 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 brave. Brave, 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 brave. Hey. Hey, hey, I am brave.
Thank you, Ken. That was lovely. And so before we close with our prayer for protection, let me just remind you that we are gathering on Zoom immediately following the service. And so let's do our prayer protection together now. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And so it is.